Welcome back to another episode of Trading Secrets. Today we are joined by my good friend, Bachelor Nation Hall of Famer, former host of ABC's The Bachelor, The Bachelorette, Bachelor in Paradise, and all of the franchise spinoffs over a 20-year span, the one and only Chris Harrison. Chris spent 20 years becoming the face of one of reality TV's top franchises and establishing himself as one of the top hosts in all of television. His hosting resume is extensive outside the Bachelor franchise, as he hosted Who Wants to Be a Millionaire and the Miss America pageant, and of course, carpet coverage at the Emmys, just to name a few. He is also the author of The Perfect Letter. In recent years, after a highly publicized departure from his host title of The Bachelor shows, Chris has looked to embark on other career endeavors in and out of the media space, which we're going to get into. And he is now hosting one of iHeart's top podcasts, the most dramatic podcast ever. I can tell you from experience, just coming off the hot seat seconds ago, it is the most dramatic podcast ever. But today we are going to chat with Chris on his career, Bachelor Nation, where he sees the franchise going, and what are some of his career goals now and moving forward. And of course, we're going to dabble in some finance and money talk. Chris, thank you so much for being on Trading Secrets.
Jay, thanks for having me, man.
It is good to be here.
Welcome to my hot seat.
And let me tell you, payback is going to be friendly. No.
Hey, let's keep this above the belt. Let's keep it friendly. We're just a couple guys having a beer here in Austin, Texas. Cheers. It's good to have you in my home.
It is good to be in your home. Thank you for having me. And if you guys haven't listened, go tune into the Most Dramatic Podcast. I was just on Chris's podcast, and we get deep. I get emotional.
I really appreciate it. It was a great talk. And
Yeah.
I know we'll do the same here. And it is the good and the bad, I guess, of podcasts and these long form interviews, especially when you're doing it face to face with someone who you really love and admire. You're going to go deeper. You know, the gloves come off, the walls come down, whatever analogy you want to say. And it's like, you know, it's good because you get the honesty, and that's what these things are all about. It's why I don't know if I'll ever go back to doing regular interviews where they're going to frank and bite you into 10-second sound bites.
Yeah.
When I can come on and talk to you or talk to, do my own show, and I can say what I really want.
Yeah,
and
I
I'm
think
not going to be edited.
Exactly. And the authenticity, and I think the vulnerability that comes with it when you do already have an existing relationship and there's already so much context and history, it makes for such a deeper conversation.
For sure.
And this is a business podcast, so it's one of the reasons why the whole podcast industry is blowing up. You have a podcast. We'll get into that. But Chris, what we're going to do, we're going to rewind to the start of your career. So you were a sports, everyone knows you, of course, from the Bachelor franchise, but you were a sports reporter at a CBS affiliate. You were also with a horse racing channel. You were the host of Designer Challenges. You've done a lot of things in TV before The Bachelor came knocking on your door. So I want to go back into those days. When you got into those roles, like let's just talk about your first hosting career right out of school. What does the audition process look like? What does the pay look like? Tell me about like what that career is like from an entry point perspective.
Yeah, I always say, I took a long time to become an overnight sensation. It's true. It's, people always see the top 10%, whether it's in sports, and you see Tiger Woods or Serena Williams and you say they were made to play tennis or made to play golf, or, Chris, you got so lucky getting The Bachelor. And I'm like, yeah, I worked damn hard to be that lucky. I was at this for a long time before I popped up on ABC, and it started back in 93. I was a soccer player like you. I played in college, and I got into sportscasting in school. And I was doing local play-by-play on the Cox Cable Network for our basketball team at Oklahoma City University. And we happened to be amazing. We won the national title like 2 years in a row. And I was calling games. I was doing play-by-play. And it was the first thing that made me think twice about soccer. Like I was not a great student in high school. I didn't love school. I got to college and I just wanted to meet girls and play soccer. That was my life. Like most 18-year-old boys.
Yeah.
And I had the ability to kick a soccer ball and run pretty fast. And so I was a good soccer player and I got a scholarship. And that was such a blessing because it opened up the next door, which was I got into mass communications and broadcasting. And this gentleman, Chris Weish, came to me at school. We're still friends. We still talk. And he said, hey, I'm about to start a program. I need a student to start this program doing play-by-play for the basketball team. I'm like, dude, I have no idea how to do that. I've never been on TV. And he's like, if I teach you, will you do it? And so I dove into it, and really, I don't do drugs, but it was like, I guess heroin. I don't know, but it was the first thing. I'm just like, I'm addicted to this.
Interesting.
Like, I was good at it. I could tell, and I had a knack for it, and it felt right, and everything clicked. And it was the first time I don't really care about soccer anymore. I don't care if I turn pro, which, by the way, I wasn't good enough to go pro anyway. But in my head, I'm like, I don't know. I didn't have another out. But now I'm like, I have this love of my life that I am diving headfirst into. Got an internship at the local affiliate. You mentioned CBS. It was KWTV. And this amazing mentor of mine, Bill Tegans, who his book is sitting right over there. The late, great Bill Tegans, who passed away. But he took me under his wing. And I could not get enough of being around him, being around the station. In sports, you call it a gym rat.
Okay.
I was a station rat.
Okay.
I couldn't be around the station enough. Again, I was just, I either do things or I don't. And I was all in on this. And I luckily got my first job right out of college at KWTV in Oklahoma City. And I know you're thinking, oh, that's not a big deal. It is. It's a top 50 market. It was a small job. It was a morning show on the weekends. I'm talking 6 to 8 a.m.
Okay.
Saturday mornings. It started to be Saturday and Sundays, but it started off just Saturdays.
Okay.
I honestly think I was making $500 a weekend doing it.
And this was your first job out of school?
My
then?
first job.
Okay.
And I was not qualified. And I know you're like, that's a small job, but I was not qualified to get that job in a top 50 market. That was a pretty good job. A lot of people had auditioned for it. I had this one moment in Dallas, Texas, covering the Cowboys when Jerry Jones fired Jimmy Johnson and hired Barry Switzer. We were down there covering it. And I was really just a glorified intern. I was down there just helping. And the truck went down. All the tapes melted down. We couldn't run any of the tapes that the sportscaster had put together. And he said, Chris, put on your jacket. I was ready in a suit and tie, ready to go, not thinking I'd be on the air. It's just how I dressed.
Sure.
And he said, you're coming on the air. So I was ready. You know, whether I knew it or not that day, I wore the suit and tie for a reason. I believe in being overdressed for every situation. And he pulled me on, and I said, what am I doing? He says, just talk. I'm going to ask questions. You have forgotten more about the Dallas Cowboys than any of us ever know. Just tell me what you saw today. Tell me what you heard. Tell me what's going on. How is this historically significant?
Okay.
And I jumped into a live shot and crushed it. And I went home, and my boss was like, you're going to get this job that you're not qualified for. We're going to take a leap of faith, and we're giving you this job. And I did it. And I was coaching 2 soccer teams.
Okay.
I coached a high school girls team and a boys club team, making a lot more money than I was making in TV. I would go in on Friday nights, and as an intern, basically, they would pay me like $50 to work the Friday night high school football show.
Jeez.
And so back then you had to call, right? We didn't have the internet. We didn't have texting and all that. So we had a Rolodex, and we would call and get all the scores from all the games around Oklahoma. And that's what I would do. And I would help edit tapes and put the show together. And then everybody would leave around 11:30 after the late news. And my night began. I had 4 sportscasts to put together for Saturday morning by 6 a.m. So I stayed up at the station all night, wrote, edited, produced all my own shows, finally would go to sleep for about an hour on the floor of my office, get up, do my own hair and makeup, get dressed, do 4 sportscasts.
$500 a weekend. You're coaching. You have the internship. You're doing this and grinding this on a weekend. And by the way, what's wild is you're describing this, and it seems like entry level, but this was a huge stretch job for you.
Yeah, top 50 market.
Yeah,
which is big. Usually, you leave and you go to Beaumont, Texas, or Wichita Falls,
Williamsville, Buffalo, New York.
Yeah, exactly. You go to these markets that are like market 75 through 175. And by the way, if you don't know, market size is like New York and LA are like 1 and 2, and Dallas is big. And, as you would think, the bigger the city, the bigger the market.
How long were you in that role for?
Not long. Maybe only like 6 to 7 months. And then the number 3 guy left and went to New Orleans.
Okay.
And again, I was not ready for this job, and my boss it was really depressing because I wanted that job so damn bad. I loved him. I loved this station, and I just knew I wasn't going to get this job. I was sending out resume tapes, and, you talk about the audition process. You would put together resume tapes and, your best stories, your best sportscast and all that stuff, and you'd send it to Poughkeepsie and, Tucumcari, New Mexico, and you're asking for a job. And so that was my lot. I was going to leave and I wasn't going to get this job. And my boss was looking at all these tapes. And again, he's just like, I just went through 1,000 tapes. And it was depressing because these tapes would be stacked up on my desk. And he was looking at them.
Yeah.
Looking
So
at
you're
people.
seeing all the people you're competing
it's
against.
It'd be like, the girl you're in love with looking at pictures of guys that aren't going to be you. And so my
Sounds
boss,
like an episode of The Bachelor.
Yeah, it was an episode of The Bachelor. But, my boss went through like tape 5,000 and he finally was just like, no one's better than you, dude.
Wow.
He's like, you're not ready for this. And he called me, and I'll never forget. This is the funniest business moment of my life. I've never told this story. He calls me in. I think it might have been on my day off. And I go in, and he calls me in the sports office, and he's like, I'm giving you the job.
Wow.
And goosebumps. I got tears in my eyes. My life in this instant just changed. And so he goes, we got to go talk to the news director, Joyce Reed. So we're walking to Joyce's office, and we're kind of backstage. From the sports office, you had to walk around the set. Then you got to the newsroom. So I stopped him backstage, and I said, Bill, in my excitement, I'm like, hey, shit, I didn't even think about this. What do I ask for?
Sure.
Like,
how do I get paid?
He goes,
what was your title, by the way, this new job?
at this point,
Yeah.
I wasn't even on the team. I was the Saturday morning sports guy.
Okay.
I wasn't even doing stories for the main newscast.
Okay.
I wasn't even a part of the 5, 6, and 10 o'clock team.
Okay.
This guy was, there's the 5, 6, and 10 guy, like the guy,
Yeah.
right? That's your sports director.
We all know him, yeah.
Yeah. And then there's the number 2 guy who usually does weekends.
Okay.
Sometimes Friday nights, usually weekend show. Then there's usually a number 3 guy that's just a reporter. He can fill in and anchor, but usually he's out on the beat doing the local stories and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
This was for that job.
Okay.
It was for the number 3 job. And so I stop him. I'm like, Bill, what do I ask for? And he goes, dude, you know how lucky you are to have this job? You walk in that office, you say thank you, and you get out of there as fast as possible without saying anything. When they say the number, if it's completely egregious, I'll speak up. You don't say a word. Just say thank you and get the F out of the
Well,
office.
the natural question, what was the number?
22.5.
$22,500.
My first
what
job
year?
ever. This would have been 1993, 94, probably 94 by then.
Yeah.
I graduated in 93. So by now, probably calendar year had switched. So probably 94.
Yeah.
I still have the contract right over there in my desk.
Unbelievable. Let me ask you this, because things we learn at an early age tend to stick with us a little bit. Do you think any of that has been instilled in you in the fact that you got that offer, take it, don't negotiate? And we'll talk a little bit more about your career stops along the way, but do you think that's something that stuck with you because the first ever opportunity to negotiate, that's what you were told in this industry?
No, not in a bad way. And I don't know if you're asking it, like, was it a bad habit?
Yeah.
It was something that I talk to kids about all the time. My son is a senior. Josh is a senior at TCU. And I'm trying to impart on him some of the wisdom I didn't have going into this world of business and I see this on the internet a lot of people like, I don't like working. I can't make enough to live. I can't. I feel for this generation graduating. I know life is hard right now, and I'm not saying it's not, but I also see people that are worried about the wrong things entering the business world. You're worried about a title. You're worried about money. I have always felt, and I'm not saying this is the golden rule. This is just me. Money will come.
Yeah.
In that lesson, we'll talk about later when we get to Miss America and some of these other things. That lesson has really paid off in spades for me. Trust yourself, trust your skills, trust your work ethic. The money and the title will come. And I've been lucky enough that I love what I do. I've always been passionate about what I do. And my mom always taught me, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. And I believe that. And so I didn't care. I'm like, I'll wait tables at Olive Garden, which I did. I'll coach 2 high school soccer teams, which I did. I'll coach a club team, which I did. I'll come in and work Friday nights just for the opportunity to do what I love, because I know once I do it, I'm going to crush it.
Especially in your space where experience is your resume is your experience, and that's what's going to get you the next opportunity. Inevitably, all this ended up paramounting to landing you with ABC, The Bachelor. But before we get into that, what stops did you have along the way before ABC comes knocking on your door?
Well, once I made it in Oklahoma City as the number 3 guy, I quickly moved up to the number 2 spot. They were not, they graciously gave me that job. So now I'm number 2 and I'm doing the weekends and I'm filling in for my boss. I'm doing a lot of the 5, 6, and 10 o'clock shows. So I was really doing it well. And I saw a world in which, do I stay here in Oklahoma City and have an amazing life? And
be the guy.
Be the guy. You're a big fish in a smaller pond, covering Oklahoma football at Oklahoma State, the Dallas Cowboys. But I had this dream to always move back home to Dallas, be a sportscaster in Dallas, and be the voice of the Dallas Cowboys.
Wow.
I wanted to be, that was my dream job, was be the play-by-play guy for the Dallas Cowboys and be a sportscaster. And in 99, I made that come true. And I got a job offer to be a sportscaster in Dallas, Texas. A guy named Mike Ducey, who's still there, he offered me a job, and it wasn't the job. But again, don't always worry about the job. That'll come. It was just the gateway to get to Dallas. And then I was going to figure out a way to be the voice of the Cowboys. At the same time, I had this agent who called and said, hey, there's a horse racing network that's starting up in LA. They really want to see you. And I went out and auditioned, and I knew very little about horse racing. I knew it pretty. I knew, I was a sportscaster, so I covered the Derby, I covered the big 3, and then I covered the Breeders' Cup, that kind of stuff. But I wasn't intimate with it. The Remington Park, there was a track in Oklahoma City. I kind of kept up with it a little bit, but they really were looking for sportscasters to work with professionals, and they offered me way too much money. 6 figures, just over 6 figures.
Let me ask you this, though. You go from 500, you go to 22.5, you then go to Dallas. Again, one takeaway I want to make.
No, I didn't go to Dallas.
You didn't. You ended up not taking that.
I had the dream offer, and I turned it down and went to LA.
Because of this?
Because of TVG.
Okay, dream offer. What was the dream offer? How much?
I don't even know if I negotiated the Dallas job. It probably would have been, my guess, 65, 75,000. I think I was making, when I left Oklahoma City, I still wasn't making 6 figures. I was probably making 60, maybe, probably in the 50s. I was probably making it in the 50s.
And how old are you at this point?
Oh gosh, I was young when I graduated. I was only like 21 when I graduated college. So this is, by now, 99? I got to do some math here. What am I, 20? Well, no, I came to LA when I was 28, 29 years old.
Okay, so 28, 29, you pass on the dream job because of the horse racing opportunity out in LA. It's a 6-figure deal, though.
I just had this idea that I could always go home. This weird opportunity came up, and I don't know. I never had a dream of going to Hollywood or LA, but I went out there and auditioned, and they offered me, I think it was $125,000, maybe $135,000. And I'll be honest, I didn't grow up with money. My parents did not have a lot of money. It was more money than I ever thought I was going to see in my life. I couldn't fathom making 6 figures. My dream, honestly, if you said, hey, 25-year-old Chris or whatever, what would be your dream number to make money? I always had this idea of, could I be a sportscaster and make $100,000? Yeah. If I do, I will be the luckiest, richest SOB in the world. And that was my dream. That was all I wanted to do. And then I remember sitting in the back of my house in Oklahoma City, and I had these 2 offers on the table, and I just thought, let's do it. It's the country song, heads Carolina, tails California. I'm like, heads Dallas, tails California. I'm like, I'll go surf for 6 months. I didn't think much would come of it. I thought, I'll be there for 6 months or a year. I can always come back home to Dallas and jump back into the dream, but just stretch your wings a little bit.
Is it fair to say if you didn't take the horse racing opportunity in LA, that inevitably The Bachelor probably would not have found you?
0%.
0%. So they only found you because you were in LA with that opportunity.
Because there were a number of other things that happened that led me to get on the list and remain on the Bachelor list host listed for over a year. Mm-hmm. I heard about this job for a long time. I forgot about this job, and then ended up getting a call back that you were down to the Final 4. And there were a couple of things I did, again, lessons I've learned of things I was doing just out of the kindness of my heart that led to me getting the Bachelor job.
One thing I talk a lot about, though, is based on your profession, based on your passion, based on your interest, there are certain cities that will revolve around whatever those industries, passions, and places are. If you don't put yourself in a position to, whatever anybody's going to say, get lucky or find that golden opportunity, it never will come, but you did. So you take the job, you're in LA, you're making $1.25 in the late 90s as a mid 20-year-old. If you take into inflation, that's huge. You're rich and killing it.
And I was married at the time, and my then wife was doing pretty well. She was an accounting major and working in, I think that time she was working for a medical company, and she was doing well.
How old were you when you got married?
I was 23.
And did you get married in Dallas?
We got married in Dallas.
Interesting.
Yeah, she was an Air Force brat, but went to school in San Antonio. We went to college together. We were college sweethearts, and we got engaged on like spring break of my senior year. Wow. And we were kids.
Things have changed.
Yeah,
right?
we were
Just
children.
societally.
Obviously, we grew up, and we're still friends. And she's a great mom. But obviously, I was 18 years old when I met her. Or 19. I was 19.
Interesting.
You're a little bit of a different man.
You grow into a different person
exactly.
from 19 to as the years pass. All right. So then you're in LA. Tell me about what the process is from the horse racing network in LA to all of a sudden getting a call from a reality television opportunity. What does it look like?
In business and in life, the world's worst cologne is desperation. I didn't smell like desperation.
God, I love that line.
I was new. I was new to the business. I was new to the city. I was a fresh face, and I was making what I thought was bank. So I didn't care. I didn't give a shit. I started to go on what's called auditions, and I say that laughingly because I just didn't know. I didn't know what an audition was.
Yeah.
I never auditioned. I went to job interviews like a normal human being. I never auditioned. I'll never forget when I got. My agent would call and they would say, "Oh, do you want to, do some acting stuff?" And I was like, "Sure, that sounds fun. Movies are cool.
Yeah.
I've been to some movies."
Yeah.
And so I went for this movie called Bounce.
Okay.
With Ben Affleck and Gwyneth Paltrow. And the casting director calls me back. She says, "You got a call back." I said, "That's great.
Have you ever acted a day in your life going into this?
Never.
Not a lick.
Never. I was I was a host, a sportscaster, whatever. I hang up the phone. I call my agent. "Hey, what's a callback?"
Yeah.
And they're like, "What?" I said, "I just got a call back. Is that good? Is that, She's like, "You're an idiot."
Yeah.
I said, "No, I know." And I'm like, "Cards on the table, man. I don't know what this is." They're
Sure.
like, "Did she say a time?" I said, "Yeah, 2:00. She said, "That means you need to be back today at 2 for a callback." I'm like, "Oh." And you get what's called sides, right? They give you a piece of paper and it has this, what you're going to say. And it was for a CNN reporter, like a newscaster role.
Okay.
And so I go back in, and the first time you're in front of a video camera, a little Betamax thing that we all had back in the day, and they record you. And it's just the casting director. And you read your lines, and then they give you a call back. And I go back in, and now the room's full. There's 10 people in there. I don't know, director, producers. I don't know who the hell it is. And they're like, "All right, go." And I'm like, "All right." And
Rip it.
And I'm literally just having fun.
Yeah.
I did not care, which was the genius behind it all. I wasn't desperate. I wasn't a starving actor or whatever. I was just like, I'm just doing me, man. And so I had been a newscaster. I really had done news. I did tornado chasing. I did the bombing in 1995 in Oklahoma City, things that really shaped my life. And I was a journalist at heart. And so I went into this and I started reading, and I kind of changed some of the lines because I was like, their writing was terrible.
It wasn't good as a
It
journalist.
was some Hollywood writer trying to write like a newscaster. And I'm like, "No, dude, we would never say this."
Yeah.
So I did a whole breaking news thing because Bounce, the movie, was about this plane crash.
Okay.
And they said, "Stop, stop, stop." And I was like, "Oh, sorry. I changed some things." They go, "Who did?" I go, "Well, I kind of told them my story." And they're like, "You got the job."
Wow.
I'm like, "Really? That's cool." But I learned a quick lesson. When you're in a Ben Affleck movie, you're going to see a lot of Ben Affleck, not Chris Harrison.
Lesson learned.
I went in.
Humbling for 25-year-old Chris.
So Jay, I'm so pumped, man. I told everybody, right? I'm on top of the Sears Tower, and I'm yelling, "I'm in a movie with Ben Affleck and Gwyneth Paltrow." I'm so pumped. I'm calling my friends. I'm calling friends I don't even know. And I go to the movie. They gave us premiere tickets. Yeah, I'm a big deal, dude.
I'll walk the carpet.
I'm crushing
Chris.
it. Yeah. And I'm not doing The Bachelor yet. No one knows who the hell I am. Ben Affleck, Gwyneth Paltrow are there watching the movie. In my scene, I knew it was in because it's pivotal. It's kind of this come to Jesus moment at the end of the movie with Ben Affleck sitting on the bed. And I'm kind of reciting and recapitulating the whole thing. So, he's listening to it and kind of just has this moment. Well, it's his moment. It's Ben Affleck. It's not mine. You can hear my voice, and then you can see my face in a reflection.
It's blurry.
In a picture behind Ben's head.
Yeah.
So that's how it was so humbling. I'm like, oh.
Welcome to Hollywood.
Welcome
Chris.
to Hollywood. That was my welcome to Hollywood moment. I made scale. I made no money.
Yeah.
But, I did. I went to the party with Ben and Gwyneth, and I was like,
you just said an industry jargon that people won't know. I made scale.
So yeah, I wasn't even a member of the union yet, which is SAG-AFTRA, the Screen Actors Guild.
Yep.
But this movie got me into SAG because the jobs I'd done up to then weren't union jobs, and so there is a set amount of money that you will at least make, which is, they call it scale. And it was, I don't even know what it was, maybe $1,700. So if you have a speaking part, there, you have to make this amount of money. They can't go any lower than that as a union shop.
So you're making the minimum that you can make. You do this audition, you land it, you'll have a very, very coming to
I would have
Hollywood
traded it all
moment.
for 2 tickets to the premiere.
Exactly.
Oh, I was in heaven.
So unbelievable. But how does this experience with the acting and then the hosting connect to how The Bachelor finds
So
you?
I was doing so really what led to it, I kind of jumped ahead, but really what led to it, I started auditioning for some of that stuff. I realized I'm not an actor. I don't, that's not my love. I've done it. I was in another movie with Eddie Murphy and Robert De Niro, and it was ironically about reality TV.
Come on.
It was Rene Russo, and they were producers, and they were following these 2 cops. And I had a really funny scene in there, and it was like the worst acting job of my life. But so I did some of that stuff, just goofing around. Oh, yeah, we got to dig
these up.
It's gold. You'll see me overact because De Niro had just shot a camera with a gun. He got mad and he shot this camera.
Yeah.
And so I was this, scared reporter asking him questions, and he turns around, and I was supposed to be like, hey, you're supposed to be scared like he could shoot you.
Yeah.
And it was like this overacting moment where my eyes get big. It's like, it's like overacting 101.
Director's like, cut, less,
dude,
Chris, less.
Like, you're at a 15, take it to a 4. But overacting aside, my next big gig and the next big breakthrough was Home and Garden Network.
Okay.
Designers Challenge.
I mean, you're going from the Dallas Cowboys to horse racing now to Home and Garden
Home
Network.
and Garden. I mean, the world, I'm a big fan of chase your dream, follow your passion relentlessly, but just pay attention to when other doors and windows open.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer of soccer got me to this level because I went to college, but it wasn't going to get me any further.
Yeah.
But it opened the door to sportscasting.
Interesting.
That opened the door to moving to LA. That opened the door to so I'm a big believer of wait till that door is cracked open or whatever. Don't be so stuck on your dream that you're not afraid to pivot and go somewhere else.
And Designers Challenge, that's with HGTV, which at this point is like a legit network. Like
we were killing it.
Yeah.
And Designers Challenge became the #1 show on HGTV. It was right as the design craze was taking off. What was this big design show on ABC? Where you remodel a house or whatever.
The home makeover.
Home
show?
makeover. Yeah, design makeover.
Move that bus.
Yeah. So I was right as that was happening. So we'd been on for a couple of years. So everybody was clamoring to get a design show. I was already on the air. So all of a sudden my show just blows up and we are cranking out episodes.
Are you making more than you were making at the horse racing gig?
By now, yes.
So now you're in your late 20s.
I'm doing both, but I kept both jobs.
Both. So you're doing the old double dip.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. What do you get paid to be a host for Designers Challenge for HGTV?
Oh, God. It was per episode. And at first it wasn't a big deal. I mean, oh gosh, maybe $5 to $10 grand is what it got up to.
Okay.
Which was great for HGTV. But then we started cranking out about 65 episodes a year.
Damn.
Because we were double and triple ordering. We were killing it.
And you were still managing the horse racing gig while doing this.
I was working there 4 or 5 hours a day, traveling a little bit. The great thing about HGTV is I would go in and it was all green screen.
Okay.
So I would crank out 7 or 8 episodes, then go do voiceover for it. And that would take 2 days. So I could crank out those episodes and then disappear. And
you were Ryan Seacrest before Ryan Seacrest was Ryan Seacrest.
I was hustling, dude.
Going back and forth.
I love the hustle. I love the work. I love the journey of it all. Those were the best times. I mean, when I look back on my career, it's like, yeah, The Bachelor was great. nothing beats sleeping on the floor of your office at a sportscaster when you're 23 years old and you're scared to death and you don't know if you're going to make rent.
Right.
That's the stuff.
But later in your 20s, it sounded like you were not only making rent, you were banking. This is
then I
probably
was
like $300K now, if I'm doing the math right. So you're like late 20s, $300K, HGTV behind you, the resume of horse racing. You have Oklahoma City sportscasting. I mean, you have an agent that's in your corner now in LA. Tell me how the whole package finds you in front of the Holy Grail.
Well, then comes Game Show Network.
Okay.
And I did a show called Mall Masters, the Mall of America.
I
shot that at the mall of in Minneapolis. And so we shot, it was horrifyingly cold. God bless you people in Minneapolis listening right now. I was there in November and I was there for like 6 weeks. It was the longest year of my life. And, but I did that and I met this great production company, Stone Stanley, and they taught me how to be a game show host, which later would become an invaluable asset as I take over Millionaire. I had the vernacular and I understood how to do it because I was a host, but I didn't know how to be a game show. So he taught me the lingo, taught me this leads to this, which means this.
Give me one trading secret from being a game show host that you learned then that us as consumers, viewers, and even participants would have no idea.
It's just the game show hosting is more X's and O's. It's more The Bachelor, take for example, or being a sportscaster. I can weave a tale. I can tell a story. And there are moments when you can do that as a game show host, but you got to pick your spots. It's more of traffic cop. Jason, if you get this next question right, you're going to move on to the next level. And that means a shot at $1 million. There's not room for anything else in there. If I tell a story or if I get off track, I've lost that thread. And so you got to handle the business. Then I can say, Jason, what would that $1 million mean to you? What would you do with it? God. But you got to know where to put that. Okay. And so it's just being, you got to be the traffic cop and you got to know when to hit those moments, when to really punch it, and when to lay out, when to shut the F up, which is important as a host.
Interesting. Those are things that we don't get to see behind the scenes, but it's interesting how that game show is what connects you to Millionaire. It's interesting that acting with Robert De Niro needing a reaction probably is what led you to be the best host with reaction to emotion during The Bachelor. All these stops led to, a massive, massive career change for you. So was it after the mall show that you got reached out to?
I met these guys at Zoo Productions, Barry Posnick, Jack Stevens, who went on to do Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader?
Okay.
Which obviously was massive.
Huge.
And we talked about a show that didn't go, but they were good. They became really good friends of mine. And they called me for a favor and they said, look, we have a show. You're not going to host it, but we need someone who will come and do the pilot. We need, someone that isn't going to bug us for the job, someone that's just going to do a good job. Yeah. And we know you're a great host. You'll come in and knock this out of the park and you'll help us build a tape. They tried to sell that show to Warner Brothers Telepictures at the time, which is the company that was producing The Bachelor. So I was already on the list of hosts for this Bachelor job. They then saw this tape and they said, hey, we're not going to buy this show you're pitching, but who's that host? And they said, it's, and luckily I was friends with these guys. I said, oh, it's Chris Harrison. And they said, tell us about him. They go, well, he's married. I think he just had a baby or he's having a baby. And they were like, because The Bachelor was looking for the guy next door. Yeah. A guy that was married, so he wouldn't seem like a creep hitting on the ladies.
Sure.
And at the time, which is really rare now, looking for an unknown. They were looking for an unknown name that would come in and just be, the backstory. You're not the star of the show on The Bachelor. And really, when you talk about things that really set me up for life, journalism, being a sportscaster, my mentor, Bill Tegans, who said early on, get over yourself. You're not the story. Yeah. And all the great jobs I've had, Millionaire, Miss America, Bachelor, I'm not the star, which is fine with me. Get over yourself because people will know me if I do a great job. Yeah. And so I really relished that opportunity to just work, do a good job, and be in the background and make the Bachelor the star, make the Bachelorette the star, make the contestant on Millionaire the star of the show. Yeah. And I always said, if I do a good job, you'll know who I am.
Right.
But that is what really, I was on the list, and then just doing that favor, again, I wasn't asking for money. They did not pay me to do that pilot. I could have been a jerk and said, "Oh, give me $5,000." But I just did it. And that is what got me in front of and moved me up the list on The Bachelor. And then eventually they called me in and I had a meeting with them.
Interesting. All these moves that you're making, whether it was the negotiation at $22,500 or it was doing that pilot at no cost, even when the value of your brand is at a significant level, all of them, you're not leading with any form of ego. You're just leading with like logic and heart, which I think is a really good takeaway for people back home that are trying to find that next step. But then they do find you. They do bring you in for a meeting. Are you auditioning against other people? Do you know if you
Never
have the
auditioned.
job secure? You got the job right away.
I did less to get that job than any job I've ever had.
So
it was really weird.
Is the most
I
desirable job.
think they had done so much
Due diligence.
And I went in for a meeting with the then creator and had a horrible meeting. We hated each other.
Define horrible.
Should have been a precursor for what came 20 years later, but I wasn't that savvy. Yeah, I wasn't that savvy at the time. But we were like oil and water. He's L.A., California guy, sunglasses on, board shorts,
Yeah.
And I'm, suit, tie, hair slicked over, probably had my polo cologne on, just Midwestern guy ready for a job interview.
Sure.
And, I was warned, get ready for a long conversation.
How long was it?
4 minutes.
Stop.
We hated each other. And he's like, thanks. And I left. It was the worst meeting in the history of mankind.
So you walk out thinking there's no way.
There was no way. They offered the job to somebody else. Whose name I won't mention.
Okay.
That's one name I've always kept secret.
I will respect all your boundaries, Chris.
Until he says it, I'll never say it.
Okay.
But
is he still relevant? Would I know him if you said his name?
No.
Okay.
No.
Got it.
No.
Understood.
I think he is still hosting though. I think he is still doing some stuff.
Okay.
But he was like, and we bounced around because there was a group of us that was auditioning for a lot of the same jobs at the time.
Yeah.
Like we were all good hosts and we were all getting gigs and we were all kind of crushing at the same time. It was kind of fun. Guys I didn't know, we were all just kind of moving to LA. And then they offered the job to this other guy. They were negotiating with him. They were full in. And all of a sudden I get a call. They want to meet with you again. I said, what, to make fun of me? Like do a hidden camera show?
Yeah.
No, thanks. I'm good. I said, and plus, aren't they negotiating with this guy? And they said, well, apparently not. I'm like, they wouldn't be calling you in for nothing. So they called me in and there was, look, revisionist history. Everybody claims to be the person that was Chris Harrison's fan and the guy or the woman that said, no, man, like I'm the one that said, you're the guy. And, that was the genius. And I stood up for you. So everybody claims to be that person. I don't know who it actually was, but somebody did stand up and say, no. The guy I was going against, I will say he was very hosty.
Yeah.
He was very over the top kind of game show hosty.
Okay.
I was not. I was very kind of like I am, as you see me on the show now.
Sure.
I was very kind of laid back and just me. I've always hosted in my own voice and my own way. And I think if you watch any of my shows, that's who I am.
Gotcha.
And so they wanted that more down home feel instead of a over the top host. And so I think they pivoted and I went home for Christmas and I just got this gig and we're going to start production in January or February. And I'm like, I'm not going to tell anybody because I don't even know if I really have a job. They just took it from this guy. Why wouldn't they take it from me?
That's a good point.
I'm like, until I see myself on camera, on TV, I'm not going to say a word. And another friend of mine had kind of lost a similar job on a dating show where we all got called back in to audition for his job. And so it's a dirty business and it put the fear of God in me. And we all told him like, dude, I'm auditioning for your job today. And so I was very reluctant to celebrate.
Did you have to leave your former job to take this role on?
No. So now I'm working at the Horse Racing Network.
Okay.
I'm hosting Designers Challenge on HGTV. And I'm the host of The Bachelor on ABC.
You got to be kidding me.
I was scared. Dude, I didn't grow up with any money. We had zero money. And so I was just that, I talked to Joan Rivers and God bless her soul. I got to be kind of friends with her before she passed. And she had the same mentality of take it all. Don't ever quit a job. Don't ever turn down a job. Just, it's like Jay Leno. Do the same thing. Jay Leno would walk off the Tonight Show set and go host stand-up gigs in Vegas, like just relentlessly working. And it's, yes, we loved our job, but we were just scared.
Yeah.
We were scared because we've all lived with no money. And so now that we were making it, it's fleeting. You figure it's going to go away. I'm going to strike while the iron's hot. And at The Bachelor, you think, all right, this dude's making millions now. He's killing it. My first contract was for $12,500.
And I was going to ask you, for the first show you ever did with The Bachelor, what were you paid for the first show?
$12,500.
Is that per episode?
Per episode.
Okay.
And it was 6 one-hour episodes. That's it.
Okay. So relevant to your
not,
other...
I'll do the math for you. That's not even $100K.
Well, that's what I'm thinking about compared to your other
I'm making more money at a horse racing network.
Double.
Yeah.
Double the network.
And I'm making double that at HGTV. So, I can't quit.
Was there any reputation? Like, so you think about a dating show like that, you can't quit. The money's not what you think it's going to be. Although $12,500 at that time per episode is pretty solid. But is there any type of, especially in the world of LA, every decision you make, they say, needs to be thought through because it could ruin your reputation to do something. If you go on reality TV, it's very hard to be an actor. Things like that. If you take on a unscripted reality TV in dating, was there any risk in that at this point or no?
There was, because, the creator of the show was only known at that point for Who Wants to Marry a Millionaire. It was this very critically panned show. The ratings were good, but turned out the guy wasn't a millionaire. Turned out he had some legal issues and there was no background checks back then. So it was on Fox. It was kind of salacious, as Fox was then. And so I'm like, it is on ABC/Disney.
Okay.
So, there's going to be a modicum of respect and dignity in this love story. And I'm like, will I be able to show my face at church next Sunday? I don't know. So I was a little scared, but the good news is I didn't really have a big enough name to worry about it at the time.
Okay.
I was, Home and Garden wasn't going anywhere at the time, and the horse racing network didn't care.
Yeah.
We were all kind of hustling and trying to do other stuff. So, while I was worried about it, I didn't really have the gumption and the name to worry about it too much.
Okay, let's go back to 22-year-old Chris negotiating $22,500 deal. Who accepts it immediately? They bring $12,500 to you per episode. It's significantly lower than you're getting paid. Do you think about negotiating that?
Well, we did negotiate. And again, I wish I knew. I'd have to go back in the old archives to figure out, did they offer me 8 to start or 9 or something? And we got to 12.5, and, they wanted me to be non-union. And I said, I'm not going to give up my union membership. And so there were things that, like, they were willing to pay me more if I would do that. And so a lot of things there was a lot of negotiations going back and forth, but, to their credit, they had me over a barrel. I had never hosted a network show. I was a good host. Mm-hmm. Done some game shows and stuff like that, but I'd never been on a major network.
Okay.
So they knew it was a big gig for me. This is a big breakthrough. So in that regard, I didn't have that much leverage. I would have my leverage later, but not then. And I knew that. And again, I didn't care. Sure, I would have loved to have made millions, but I just knew this was the next step. I'm a big gut guy.
Yeah.
I believe in if it feels right, I'm going to do it. And I don't have regret when I do things. I'm just going to do it. And it's not that I won't make mistakes, and it's not that I'm always right, but I'd never look back and think, no, because I'm like, I trust the guy that made the decision at the time.
Got it. So you were the guy. You took that